What if, thousands of years ago, all the wisdom of the ancient world had been gathered into a single place? Every discovery, every poem, every invention. And then, in a twist of fate, it was all lost forever. This is not a fantasy. It is the story of the Library of Alexandria, a legendary repository of knowledge that has haunted the human imagination for centuries. Historians tell us that it was once the greatest collection of texts ever assembled in the ancient world, a place where scholars from across civilizations studied side by side. Some called it a memory of mankind. Others believed it contained secrets that could have advanced humanity by centuries. Yet today, nothing remains. No catalogue, no building, no trace of its vast shelves. What knowledge was stored there? What wonders might we have inherited had the flames, or time itself, not swallowed them whole? The destruction of the Library of Alexandria is often described as one of the greatest intellectual tragedies in history. It has become a symbol of both human ambition and human fragility, the eternal dream of collecting and preserving knowledge, and the terrifying reminder that it can all vanish in an instant. To uncover this mystery, we must travel back in time to the city of Alexandria itself, a city born from conquest, ambition, and the vision of creating not just an empire, but a universal hub of knowledge. The story begins in 331 BCE, when Alexander the Great founded a new city on the Mediterranean coast of Egypt. He named it Alexandria, and although he would not live to see its rise, the city soon became a jewel of the Hellenistic world. After Alexander's death, his empire was divided among his generals, and Egypt fell into the hands of Ptolemy I, who would establish a dynasty that lasted nearly 3 centuries. Alexandria was more than just another city. It was a crossroads of civilizations. Nestled between the Nile Delta and the open sea, it connected Africa with the Mediterranean world and beyond. Ships arrived daily, bringing not only goods, but also ideas from Greece, Mesopotamia, India, and even distant China. The Ptolemies wanted their capital to be more than a political center. They dreamed of making it the intellectual heart of the world. Out of this ambition came the idea of the Great Library. Modelled after the tradition of Greek philosophical schools and sanctuaries of knowledge, the Ptolemies established the Museion, or Temple of the Muses, which housed not only scholars, but also a monumental collection of scrolls. Their goal was nothing less than universal knowledge. Ancient sources tell us that every ship that docked in Alexandria was searched for manuscripts. Originals were seized, copied by scribes, and placed in the library's archives. Travellers sometimes received back only the copies, while the originals were carefully preserved for posterity. This was not merely a collection, it was a statement of power. Whoever controlled knowledge controlled prestige, influence, and, perhaps, the future itself. Alexandria's library quickly became a magnet for scholars. Mathematicians, astronomers, poets, and philosophers gathered under its roof, turning the city into an ancient Silicon Valley of ideas. Yet, for all its grandeur, the library would also become a victim of the same forces that created it: political ambition, war, and the passing of time. But before we confront the story of its destruction, we must ask, what exactly did this legendary place contain? Imagine walking into a vast hall, the scent of papyrus heavy in the air, thousands upon thousands of scrolls stored in wooden chests and on towering shelves. This was the vision of the Great Library of Alexandria, a place where the accumulated knowledge of entire civilizations was said to rest. But here lies the great mystery. We don't know exactly what it held. No catalogue survived, and no building remains. All that is left are fragments of descriptions scattered through ancient texts. Estimates of its size vary wildly. Some sources claim it contained 40,000 scrolls. Others suggest as many as 700,000. To put this in perspective, even the smallest estimate would have made it the largest library of antiquity, dwarfing all others. But what did those scrolls actually contain? Scholars believe they housed Greek tragedies long lost to us, plays by Sophocles, Aeschylus, and Euripides that we will never see performed. Histories that chronicled ancient kingdoms, now erased from memory. Medical treatises from Egyptian and Mesopotamian traditions might have advanced healing centuries earlier. There are whispers that the library may have preserved works of science and technology far ahead of their time. Some speculate that it contained the lost works of Democritus, who imagined atoms as the building blocks of the universe, or early knowledge of steam engines and mechanics. Others believe it held complete maps of the world, astronomical observations from Babylon, or detailed records of Indian mathematics. The tantalizing possibility is that humanity may have lost inventions that could have reshaped history, knowledge of medicine, navigation, or even energy that might have propelled civilization forward by hundreds of years. But what makes the Library of Alexandria so enigmatic is not just what we think it contained, but what we will never know. Without a single surviving inventory, every possibility remains open. Did it house a lost epic rivaling Homer, the secrets of ancient alchemy? Or was it, as some skeptics argue, less a miraculous vault of hidden wisdom and more a grand but ordinary collection of texts, no different from any other? This tension between imagination and history fuels the library's legend. We long to believe it was a treasure chest of human brilliance, waiting to be rediscovered. Yet, we must also remember that it was built and used by real people, with real lives, who drew upon its resources not for myth, but for their daily survival and cultural advancement. To understand its true impact, we need to see how the library was woven into the life of Alexandria itself. To picture the Library of Alexandria, we must also imagine the Mauseon, the Temple of the Muses, which was not simply a library, but a research institution, a kind of ancient university. Scholars lived, worked, and debated there, supported by royal patronage. They had lodging, meals, and even gardens, all dedicated to study and discovery. For the intellectual elite of the ancient world, it was the closest thing to paradise. Among those who studied, there were figures whose names still echo through history. Euclid, the father of geometry, laid down the foundations of mathematics that children continue to learn today. Archimedes, one of the greatest minds of antiquity, applied mathematics to engineering, inventing devices that would astonish even modern engineers. Eratosthenes, the librarian himself, calculated the circumference of the earth with remarkable accuracy, using only shadows, sticks, and geometry. These men did not work in isolation. The library brought them into contact with knowledge from Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and beyond, creating a melting pot of ideas. The influence of this knowledge was not confined to lofty scholars. Maritime navigation, for instance, benefited from the astronomical charts and geographical studies housed in the library, guiding sailors across the Mediterranean. Advances in medicine, drawn from Egyptian practices and Greek analysis, found their way into everyday treatments. The rhythms of life, planting, harvesting, healing, were all subtly shaped by the discoveries preserved within those scrolls. And yet, it is tantalizing to imagine how much further humanity might have gone if all of this knowledge had been safeguarded through the centuries. Could steam engines, glimpsed in the experiments of Hero of Alexandria, have ushered in an industrial revolution 1,000 years earlier? Could cures for diseases or new technologies have been discovered long before they were reinvented? Such questions highlight the profound connection between the library's treasures and the daily lives of people both then and now. But But just as the library served as a beacon of knowledge, it also stood vulnerable in a world where power struggles, conquest, and religion shaped destinies. To understand its fate, we must now turn to the tragic story of how this temple of wisdom vanished through fire, neglect, and the slow erosion of time. If the Library of Alexandria was truly the greatest collection of knowledge in the ancient world, then its disappearance is one of history's most haunting questions. How could such a monumental institution simply vanish, leaving almost nothing behind? The truth is, no single story explains its destruction. Instead, historians suggest it was undone not by one catastrophe, but by a series of blows delivered over centuries. The first and most famous account comes from 48 BCE, during Julius Caesar's campaign in Egypt. Ancient sources tell us that Caesar set fire to the ships in Alexandria's harbour to prevent them from falling into enemy hands. The flames spread into the city, and many believed that warehouses holding scrolls destined for the library were destroyed. Was this the end of the Great Library? Some say yes, but others argue it was only a partial loss. The library may have survived, weakened, but not gone. A second blow may have come in the 3rd century CE, during the reign of Emperor Aurelian. In his efforts to reclaim Alexandria from rebellion, parts of the city were devastated, and the quarter that likely housed the library was heavily damaged. Again, history is silent on how much was lost, but the shadows deepen. By 391 CE, Christianity had become the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, and Alexandria was no exception. The patriarch Theophilus ordered the destruction of pagan temples, and the Serapeum, a daughter library connected to the Great Library, was torn down. If any scrolls still survived in its halls, they likely perished here. Finally, some accounts point to the 7th century CE, when the Arab conquest of Egypt under Caliph Omar took place. Later writers claimed that when asked what should be done with the books, Omar declared, "If they agree with the Quran, they are unnecessary. If they disagree, they are heretical." According to the tale, the scrolls were used as fuel for Alexandria's bathhouses, burning for months. Modern scholars, however, consider this story more legend than fact, written centuries after the conquest. Archaeology offers little help. No remains of the library have ever been uncovered. Whether it was a single monumental building or a complex of smaller collections remains uncertain. Perhaps it was not destroyed in one fiery night, but slowly faded, neglected as centuries passed, and rulers lost interest in preserving its treasures. The mystery of its destruction is as enduring as the library itself. But where history leaves gaps, imagination rushes in. And so, legends of what might have been hidden within its walls have flourished for centuries, giving rise to some of the most fascinating and controversial theories of all. When history falls silent, myth takes over. The Library of Alexandria has become a canvas on which generations have painted their hopes, fears, and fantasies about lost knowledge. For some, it was not just a collection of scrolls, but a vault of wonders that could have rewritten human history. Among the most enduring ideas is that the library preserved technological marvels far beyond its time. Enthusiasts speculate that within its scrolls lie blueprints for machines powered by steam, designs for flight, or even knowledge of electricity, advancements that, if preserved, might have catapulted humanity into a modern age centuries earlier. They point to the inventions of Hero of Alexandria, who created primitive steam engines and automata as hints of a forgotten technological revolution. Others go further, imagining the library as a repository of secret histories, accounts of Atlantis, maps showing continents long before they were officially discovered, or records proving that ancient civilizations were far more advanced than we think. Some fringe theories even claim that the library held proof of extraterrestrial contact, knowledge that was deliberately suppressed or lost to time. Why do these theories persist? Perhaps because the idea of such a massive loss leaves a vacuum too great for certainty alone to fill. Humans are drawn to what-ifs. The thought that ancient scrolls might have held cures for diseases, explanations of the cosmos, or wisdom about human existence feeds a longing that science alone cannot satisfy. But mainstream historians urge caution. They argue that while the loss was tragic, the library's contents were more likely to have been texts of philosophy, history, literature, and medicine, no less important, but not evidence of vanished super-civilizations. The works of Sophocles, Aristotle, or early Egyptian medical practices would still have been treasures of immeasurable value, even without futuristic secrets. Yet it is precisely this tension between sober scholarship and extravagant imagination that keeps the story alive. Whether or not the Library of Alexandria held the keys to forgotten technologies or cosmic truths, it has become a symbol of humanity's deepest yearning, the belief that there is always more to know, and perhaps something extraordinary just out of reach. And even if the myths go too far, the library's legacy is undeniable. It remains an eternal reminder of how fragile knowledge can be, and how its loss can echo for millennia. The Library of Alexandria was more than a building filled with scrolls. It was an idea. And even though the structure itself has vanished, the idea has lived on as one of the most powerful symbols in human history. Its legacy is not in what remains, but in what was lost. For scholars of the Renaissance, the destruction of the library became a cautionary tale. They saw in it the tragedy of forgetting, a warning that the wisdom of the ancients must be preserved at all costs. The Enlightenment took the lesson further. Knowledge must not only be safeguarded, but also shared widely, beyond the reach of kings and priests. Even today, the story of Alexandria inspires projects that echo its ambition, from the digital archives of the internet to the construction of great modern libraries like the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, built near the site of the ancient city as a modern tribute to its lost predecessor. But the library's legacy extends beyond scholarship. It is woven into our culture, appearing in novels, films, and television, often as a metaphor for lost potential. Science fiction writers dream of rediscovering its scrolls, while conspiracy theorists whisper about hidden vaults where fragments may still exist. The very absence of the library has made it one of the most fertile grounds for imagination in history. Perhaps the greatest significance of the Library of Alexandria lies in what it teaches us about the fragility of human achievement. Knowledge is not permanent. It can be destroyed in an instant, by fire, by war, or by neglect. And yet, the memory of that loss has driven humanity to try harder, to record, to preserve, and to share. Strangely, the destruction of the library may have made us more determined to ensure such a tragedy never happens again. The dream of Alexandria still burns, a flame that refuses to die, urging us forward toward a future where knowledge can be truly immortal. But before we close this story, we must return to the heart of the mystery. What, in the end, did humanity lose forever? The story of the Library of Alexandria is as much about imagination as it is about history. We may never know whether its shelves held lost epics, groundbreaking scientific discoveries, or simply the accumulated wisdom of the ancient world. But what makes this tale unforgettable is not only the tragedy of destruction, it is the haunting possibility of what might have been. If even a fraction of the stories are true, humanity may have lost centuries of progress. Technologies glimpsed in fragments, steam engines, advanced medicine, precise astronomy, might have changed the course of history. At the very least, priceless works of literature and philosophy vanished, silencing voices that once spoke to the world. In losing the library, we lost part of ourselves, our collective memory, our continuity, our bridge to civilizations that shaped the foundation of who we are today. And yet, from its ashes, rises a lesson that still resonates. Knowledge is fragile. It must be protected, preserved, and passed on. Every book scanned, every archive saved, every classroom taught is a small act of defiance against the fate that befell Alexandria. The library reminds us that while knowledge can be lost, the desire to seek it never truly dies. The truth of the Library of Alexandria may never be fully revealed, but its story continues to inspire dreamers, scholars, and storytellers alike. It is a warning of what can vanish, and a beacon of what we must strive to protect. And so, the great mystery remains. What knowledge did humanity lose forever? Perhaps the answer lies not in the past, but in the way we shape the future. In the next episode, we will explore another legend of the ancient world, the glittering myth of the lost city of El Dorado, a place where gold was said to flow like rivers, luring explorers into peril and obsession. If you enjoyed this journey into the mystery of the Library of Alexandria, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep uncovering the secrets of history together.